If you have guppies and they're not doing what you want them to do, you might need to look into the guppy water. You can make your own magical guppy water, or you can kind of get it naturally. I'll go through both of the methods that I know about to make really good guppy water, and I bet it's gonna help your guppy problem if you have one. Since I started doing this, I don't have any issues with my guppies. They do exactly what I want them to do. You guys like my super professional backdrop for opening up stuff? We just got some guppies from my buddy Kang Lee over at Twin Cities Guppies. I don't know exactly what he sent me. I picked out a couple. Let's get something that will make opening this box really, really easy. I can feel how warm this is from that heat pack, which is nice, I guess. I don't know what the weather's like over in the Twin Cities area, but it's probably a little colder than it is here. So, wow, what is this? I can't remember exactly what I told him. This fish is beautiful though. I'll put on screen exactly what I got after the fact here, but let's see. So we got one male of that guy. I guess it says on the bag. It would help to be able to read and talk at the same time. This guy's awesome. Let's just set him right there. We'll have to figure out a better setup here because we have a lot. Kang, you sent me too many fish, man. I mean, I'll take them. I'm not gonna complain, but friend, you want to come meet your new guppy friend? What's this? Oh, he's scared. Red dragon female. I basically told Kang that I wanted a couple different sets of breeding trios so that we could get some really awesome looking guppies. Because the guppies that I have right now, they're doing great for me. They're breeding, they're doing what I need them to do, but they're just kind of a hybrid mutt at this point. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't really care so much about what those guppies look like and for what I'm using them for, but it would be nice to have some cool looking guppies. And to be honest, I kind of, like with the rice fish, got into the breeding of the fish. I kind of accidentally also got into breeding guppies because it's so easy. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's finish seeing what we got here. This is a female purple blue mosaic. Kind of hard to tell. We'll look at all these fish in tanks here in a little bit, but just look at the blue finnage on that fish, a female no less. So we should have a purple blue mosaic male, which is looking very, very good. I know it's hard to see. And we got another purple blue mosaic female. So I think this is gonna be 2 sets of fish, 3 in each, but maybe we'll have a third. So this is a metal blue tail male. Kang must have sent me exactly what I asked him for. That was so awesome. Thank you, Kang. So it's looking like we got red dragons, we have the purple blue mosaic, and then we have the metal blue tail. Trios of each. So there's another female red dragon, and then another female blue tail. So we have 2 females, 1 male of 3 different strains of guppy. Dehumidifier is getting a little full. Just when I think this space is almost done, there's just a million more things to do. Oh, I don't have my lab coat on, 1 second. Ah, that's better. Okay, all right guys, long story short, we were supposed to have 5 rimless aquariums lined up, about 5 gallons each, side by side on this rack. And that was going to house basically all of the rice fish, as well as some of the feeding experiment tanks, but we just, I tried to time it perfectly and it didn't go that way, obviously. So we're improvising. We got 2 5-gallon rim tanks that will house 2 sets of the guppies, and then I'll just find a 3rd tank and it'll be a temporary home for them until we can get those tanks, reorganize all of this stuff, probably make room down here. And because we need to really figure out like a permanent home for these fish, they're not going to be experimented on or anything weird like that, but we are going to be using them to try and get as many really awesome babies as possible and to just kind of do some side projects with. We're certainly not going to be mixing them all together. We're going to keep them separate so that we can maintain the genetics, the line. We're going to respect the breeding lineage here and try and continue it. First things first, we got to get this area all set up. So luckily there was the $1 per gallon sale going on. So these 2 5-gallon tanks only cost me, I think, like $22 or something. Found this other random, I think this is the old Denalay / Forest Aquarium tank. We gotta clean it out though, because it is super dirty. Took everything out back, hosed it off. Found out at the same time that my hose was broken. So bear with me on the awkward, I don't have a thing on my hose. We got all the nasty stuff out of this tank. Luckily, these ones are easy, you know, just a quick little rinse to make sure we get all the weird oils and stuff that might be in here from the manufacturing process. So we should be good to go, but guys, we gotta fill these up, which means we need to make a bunch of guppy water. I have some pre-made stuff over here, but we're gonna need a lot more than 5 gallons. To make your magic guppy water, you're first gonna need your unmarked bag of sodium bicarbonate, aka baking soda. We're also gonna need some salt. This is the most important thing of it all. I got Fritz salt. This is marine. I think it's the blue RPM salt. We're gonna be mixing our concoction in a 5-gallon bucket. So this is my recipe for 5 gallons, but you can scale it appropriately. Toss in a little bit of dechlorinator. You can do this before or after. I don't think it really matters. For this 5 gallons, I like to use a half a teaspoon of the marine salt. That seems to give me a really good GH level that I like. This might depend on how soft your tap water is. Mine's so soft that this is what works for me and brings my GH eventually up to about like between 150 and 300. The other slightly less important thing is gonna be the sodium bicarbonate. This is gonna raise the KH a little bit. And during this demo, I was just throwing in a pinch. I usually throw in a couple. To be more exact, if you do also a half a teaspoon per 5 gallons, it should raise up your KH by about 100 ppm. It's gonna raise the pH a little bit, but not a lot. Like it's not gonna take our 7 to pH 8 or anything like that. And this got all mixed up while we were filling it. And you know, if you're not gonna be using this water right away, you don't need to use the dechlor. You can just let it off gas if you want. We made sure to label this appropriately with the KH plus because we did boost it with that this time. Let's go ahead and check out our resulting concentrations here. So we see we're somewhere around maybe 300 GH, and we're right in that middle ground of KH, 120 ppms-ish. But I think I said it before, I'm not sure how important that KH really is for the physiology of the guppy. So the whole reason I have to do this is because my water is super soft. Out of the tap, I barely have a pH of 7. My carbonate hardness is basically undetectable, and my GH is whatever the lowest thing on the test strip is, and I'm sure it's below that. Guppies and other live-bearing fish seem to really like a hard water environment. It's probably an evolutionary thing, it's where they're from. I'm not sure what the exact biochemical mechanism is for why they need that. I'm sure it has something to do with osmoregulation, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other really confusing mechanisms around it, but for whatever reason, soft water, the guppies don't breed. And since we definitely want them to be breeding, we had to give them that mineral content in the water because that's just what they need. I've kept guppies on and off over the last decade in really soft water, and they do okay. They still grow, they still look good, but they definitely don't breed. And if they do, it's very few babies, and it's a relatively uncommon thing for me. At least that's been my experience with the soft water. You might be really lucky though and have super hard water coming out of your tap. And if that's the case, then you have magic guppy water and you don't have to do anything. Just take a test strip, run it under there, and if your GH is purple on the test strip and your KH is dark green, your pH is probably high as well, then you're gonna be good to go. You don't need to do anything like I'm doing back here. And the whole reason why I'm messing around with doing the mixture is because I don't want to do some of the more natural things to harden the water, which we'll talk about in a second. I have to keep everything really consistent with the feeding trials that I'm doing, and so doing it another way might introduce a little bit of variation that I don't want to have. And if you're curious about the fact that we're adding salt to a freshwater aquarium with freshwater fish, it's not a big deal. The resulting salinity in the tank is gonna be so low that it doesn't really matter. And guppies, along with I think pretty much all the other live bears, can tolerate a really high degree of salt. There's experiments where scientists have transitioned guppies into 100% salt water. I'm not sure if they love that, but they can definitely handle a lot more salt than what we're putting in here. And I also don't think that adding salt or bicarbonate to your aquarium water is an unnatural or synthetic or artificial thing. I just needed a little bit of a more interesting title for the video. It is kind of magic how just changing a little bit about the water parameters unlock the guppy's ability to have a ton of babies and do so on a regular basis. Hence why I call it magic guppy water, but you know, it's obviously not magic, it's just a little bit of chemistry. After rubbing a couple brain cells together, figured out, hey, these tanks are 5 gallons, my recipe's for 5 gallons, let's just do it to each one of these things. So that's exactly what I did. Measured out my half teaspoon of the Fritz salt, put it into each tank, give or take. I mean, we don't have to be exactly precise here, we're still gonna get the effect that we want. Went through with the baking soda, put a pinch in there, that was eventually not quite enough, so I put a little bit more in there after the fact, just to get that up to where the test strip would show me a green. I don't know, I just really like the full green color on the test strip. Filled the tanks up with water with my broken hose, until I figured out that my nozzle actually wasn't completely broken, it just had a little leak on it, and it wasn't as bad as I thought, so made a tsunami in our last tank. Needed to call an audible and raise the temperature of these things because they were a little cold from that tap water. I also dechlorinated this water. I just forgot to turn the camera on for that part. Here's another look at my bucket here in all of its glory. Check the temp on our new tanks, sitting at about 78, 79-ish degrees, perfect. Went over and checked the temperature of our guppies in the bags. They were sitting in the low 80s. That would make the temperature acclimation pretty quick. Before we put them in, we need to double check and make sure our chemistry is good in these new tanks. Like I said, we checked it. That KH was a little low. Again, don't really know how important that is. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but I do know Kang's water is super, super hard. So we're gonna juice this up and make it a little bit harder, just so those guppies don't have to go through any sort of drip acclimation. Just wanted to make sure that GH was high enough, close to the 300 level. And then we could start to temperature acclimate our fish. So we just put them all in the tanks. Took a second to look at them in all of their beauty. Look at these females, man. They are crazy. Got our metal tail blue guppy over here looking fresh. Once the temperature acclimation was done, then we could just open the bags, plop them in. I feel comfortable doing this because, again, we're getting really close to what the parameters of the bags are, what Kang keeps these guppies at, so there's really not that much of a difference from them going from the bags into these tanks. That's ultimately what they want, because that can be the stressful part of this whole process. Once they were in, I thought, these tanks are pretty boring. There's nothing for the fish to really look at. So I grabbed some of my rice fish breeding mops to put in there just to give them a little bit of cover. And then later on, you'll see we ended up putting quite a bit of Sylvinia in these tanks as well. After they'd been in the tanks for a couple hours, I then hit them with a little bit of frozen brine shrimp just to see if they would eat. And they did for the most part. Gave the rest of that cube to some of the other baby fish that are in the fish room and just checked these things out for a little bit longer. I had some other work to do. But now's probably a good time to talk about the air quotes natural guppy water, or basically the method that doesn't involve you having to do anything. Here's a prime example of a tank that just automatically has guppy water and I don't have to do anything. So in this aquarium we have a bunch of Suryu stone, and that's going to be the main source of the minerals and the buffer. So if we do a test strip on this tank and just look at it, it immediately starts to turn green in the KH department, lands out at around 120, and the GH is up close to 300. So that's what I do for some of my other tanks, like this one where we have a bunch of babies. I just chucked a couple big Suryu stones in there. This is, it's not even a lot of rock relative to the water volume, but if we do a quick check on it, we look here and we're light purple on the GH, and we're sort of in that like 80 range. It's hard to exactly tell for the KH, but that's fine. I think that's, it's working, obviously. We do another check on another tank that also has main foundation being Suryu stone, and we see the same thing. If we zoom over here and look at this aquarium, which doesn't have any Suryu stone, look at what the water looks like here. GH is low because there isn't a source of it in the tank, and the KH is also like the lowest thing possible. There's hardly any buffer in this thing. On top of this, also a lot of the substrates that I use consume carbonate hardness. So if I'm not modifying the water, I'm definitely gonna have super soft water, even softer than what comes out of my tap. The guppies have made it the first 24 hours, so today was just a super long day. I had to do a bunch of work with the feeding trial stuff. Other guppies just took up my time today, but everybody's looking good. The only thing I did notice was that our male red dragon has been down at the bottom of the tank a lot lately. I don't know if that's just because his tail is so big, he's heavy. I'm kind of joking, but I'm also kind of not. So we'll keep our eye on him, but everybody else is looking happy and healthy, so our guppy water definitely checked out, and we were able to do, the acclimation that we did, which was not really an acclimation. You know what I mean. Look at these females, man. These females are so pretty. Tails are huge and beautiful. I think our first move is going to be getting those red dragons into this tank. I think this is the one we're going to select for them, and as you can see, there is a bunch of little babies in here. This is just one of my breed out tanks that I put a female into. She births out the babies, and they have a ton of hiding places. It's optimized to save the babies, and that's what we want to do with the red tails. So also did a big trim on this tank. This is another potential tank, but if we put fish in here, I mean, the babies are gonna get lost and I'm never gonna see them again. So we'll start with this, but we want to get all of these fish out. As you can see, I've already started and got lucky with one when I filled it up. Fast forward a day or so, guys, we have made a few modifications to our little guppy holding tanks, put some Sylvinia in there, and I threw in some rice fish breeding mops just to kind of give them something to have in here. I hate putting fish in just totally bare tanks, even if it's just for a short amount of time. I don't know. But our male guppy over here is doing a little bit better. Happy to report on that. Everybody else is good, just waiting to get put somewhere other than these super boring tanks. The UNS tanks are on the way. Looks like I got a t-shirt and some microfiber towels too, so we'll have to wait. We'll probably get those next week. The water's starting to get a little murky in here. That was actually a lot quicker than I thought and what I've experienced in the past, but no worries, we're gonna get these guys out of here in 5 seconds. Yo, babies? This guppy gave birth in the thing? Or there was babies in the tank? Let's go check that real quick. Set this here for now. Gotta look back here, weird. Don't eat them while I go check your other tank. Yeah, there's a couple babies in there. I wonder if I spooked one of the females and she just popped a couple out, like she's gonna go into labor now. I don't know, man. You know, guppies are kind of always pregnant, and the females can hold on to sperm packets for a super long time. So even if you do separate them, like, we don't need to put the male in that tank if the goal is to have babies. My buddy Lerb taught me that one, but I just do it because, well, one, we need to move everything out of here to set this little tank up. But yeah, there are a couple babies in there. Not sure when those got popped out, but I guess it doesn't really matter. We can go ahead and continue on as planned. I don't see any babies in either of the other tanks, but interesting. Classic guppies, am I right? I think they only ate one of them, if there was two in there to begin with, but this guy survives. I'm gonna be honest, this kind of throws a wrench in my plan. Like, I wasn't anticipating there being babies already. So I think what we're gonna have to do is get all the babies out of here, put the adult fish in the tank that they're sitting on inside, and then put substrate in here, then put the babies in here. I don't know, because there's definitely not enough from this spawn, and that female could be still pushing babies out right now. I don't know. Let's just get these fish in here. Temperature's the same, calcium, magnesium, carbonate, hardness, everything is pretty much identical, so we can just do this and not have to worry about it. God, Sylvinia gets everywhere. A little messy, but now when they have babies, the babies will actually be able to hide, and we can pull these adult fish out so that we get the maximum amount of babies possible. And again, don't need the male to be in here because surely these two females are carrying sperm. He's not required, but we had to get him out anyway to just be able to work on that tank. I'm telling you guys, it's just the guppy water. It's magical. It works. Definitely can't do this one-handed. So somewhere in the middle of this whole project last week, ran out of substrate, didn't have what I needed, so I had to go to Pisces. You know you're a fish tank person when you drive 2 hours just to get a bag of sand, but we needed to bring in some stickers anyway, check out some of their tanks. We grabbed a couple different grades of the Monterey Beach sand, checked out more tanks, and maybe we walked away with fish. I don't know. You'll see sometime. But we got that sand back. We filled it up. We made sure to wash it really good. I got all of the babies out of that tank, drained it down because we want to refresh this water a little bit, and then just poured in some of the substrate. Then remembered we needed to do this to the other tank, so after thinking about this whole situation way too long, I decided that we're just gonna put the purple blue mosaic guppies into this aquarium since it looks so nice now. And I think I'm just gonna cross my fingers that both of the females will get pregnant at the same time, have babies at the same time, and then all of them will just run into this big bush back here, and then I'll pull the parents out and we'll just grow the babies out in here. Not the most ideal situation for how to do this, but I kind of just want to be able to look at these fish more often. All right, so that leaves us with just these guppies, the metal tails here in the room for right now. We still have a lot of stuff to do, like the UNS tanks when they get in are gonna go here, and then I actually need to find a place to put these. We'd have to build something down there, but that could work. I don't know, you know, filtration is a maybe for right now. Lighting, obviously I gotta figure out what to do. We're getting some good direct sunlight through the windows here, the doors I should say. I don't know, I just needed more tanks to be able to move fish around in, and I just didn't have them. So now I have tanks, but so much more to do. We gotta get these tanks set up and move fish into these. I gotta figure out what the heck I'm gonna do with this 3-foot water box aquarium, if I'm gonna escape it and make something cool or like what. The lens is so dirty right now. But yeah, guys, that's my magic guppy water, and you know, it's probably not the best way to do it, but I don't think it's the worst way either. There's products that you can buy that are in liquid form that you just put in, you know, a capful for every 5 or 10 gallons, and then it achieves all the things that we were, you know, messing around trying to achieve with the salt and the sodium bicarbonate. But you gotta spend money on those. Like, you gotta go and buy them. Like, if you have salt and you have baking soda, you can make this stuff, you know, you can get what you want for super, super cheap. You don't have to buy a 20 bottle of thing every, you know, 3 months or whatever. And there's also easier ways to do it if you're not concerned about, you know, keeping everything super consistent between tanks like I am. You don't have to go and buy like expensive Suryu stone. You can just do the crushed coral method. That's one that Corey over at Aquarium Co-op does in like all of his tanks. He puts crushed coral in everything, I think. And that's also a really good way to do it. Like, doesn't require you to have to think or measure out anything or make it. The only reason why I don't do that is I just don't like the look of having a white substrate all the time. So with doing either the modification of the water with the salt and sodium bicarbonate, or with the Suryu stone, I can do pretty much whatever I want in the substrate, which I like being able to do. But yeah, I hope this helped somebody out there with water chemistry questions or guppy stuff specifically. It's really helped me, especially as of late when I've been trying to really focus on getting as many babies as possible. So if that's your goal, this might help you out a ton. Thanks for watching, guys. I gotta go catch a rabbit.